So today we're talking about New Year's resolutions, actually. And some people kind of scoff at New Year's resolutions. They think they don't work. And for some people, they don't work. I think it's a fair call that at the end of the day, if your New Year's resolutions don't work, you're either doing it wrong or your attitude's wrong. But no one likes to talk about that. No one ever actually blames themselves. The amount of narcissism out there that, the world's full of narcissistic people who go, well, it's never my fault. It's always there's something, the system's broken, not me.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is 2023, it's time to reset. Doesn't hurt to reset. And we're going to talk about today ways we can do that. Thanks, guys. Happy New Year to everyone. Look, the main thing, how important I think it is to underwhelm yourself. Everybody starts the year with this idea that they're going to do this, they're going to become this amazing person from day to day. They're going to do this many this and this many push-ups and squats. They're going to train this. They're going to train so hard and do that. And in a week, it's over. I mean, when I was at Hombu, I think even Nick Pettis mentioned this. When I was at Hombu as an Uchideshi, I thought that I would try to do Ichibu, Nibu, Sambu. And I'd see how many days, how long I could do it for. And I literally did it for one day. And I thought, it's insane. Because even if you kept going for 2 days or a week, your body would break down. And it's just too much hard training. So you've got to be realistic. That's the first thing about your goals. You've got to be realistic. And the best way to be realistic is underwhelm yourself. So if your goal is to do a deck of cards a day, not a bad goal. Don't start off with the deck of cards a day.
Yeah.
It's like, I found a new Makiwara tree.
Yeah, you told me actually just across the road here.
Yeah, I've moved and I'm out of my neighborhood where I used to have my Makiwara tree in the old days. And I found a new one in the park down the corner. So every morning when I take little CJ for a walk, I pull up the pram and face him and I'm back doing my Makiwara. I'm so excited about it. But anyway, there you go. What am I doing? When I finished my Makiwara, when I was training hard with my Makiwara, I was doing a very large volume because my hands were prepared for it. Now, because it's been so long, I'm back doing 10. Not 100. I'm doing 10. And then the Maki and the punches I'm doing very gently until I get my body balance and everything back. So you have to underwhelm yourself. You might have a big idea in mind. I'm going to train this hard and do this, man. Just start off one breath at a time, man. If you can get up every single morning a little earlier and do a little something, you're like miles ahead. You're above the line compared to everyone.
That compounds. And we could literally just shut this session down now, just on that guidance alone.
Yeah, exactly. We'll go through the above the line and below the line, but the fact of the matter is people who actually behave consistently above the line represent about 3 or 4% of the population. And when it comes to New Year's resolutions, I would say that the success rate would be very similar.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I heard, I don't know how accurate this is, if someone knows, Jenny Craig, the weight loss company here in Australia, allegedly, they do something like 50 or 60% of their annual revenue in the month of January. That's how many people want to
lose weight
and do the thing. And
especially after look, even if you're disciplined with your weight and training, everyone takes time off over Christmas to relax with family and friends. And, you have the pavlova you wouldn't normally have. You have the soft drink you wouldn't normally have. And you do all the stuff that you wouldn't normally do. But the fact of the matter is, what happens in January is you look down and you think, I've got to deal with that. I've got to work on that. And I'm sure gym memberships would go crazy in January.
Yes, they do.
One of the most important things that we need to look at is the whole idea of how to generalize a principle of New Year's resolutions. And for me, that is habits. Good habits, bad habits. Habits rule your life. Everything you do is a habit. The way you pick up chopsticks, the way you write, the way you sit, everything you do is habitual. So it's a simple matter of going, all right, are my habits beneficial to me in the short and long term, or are they detrimental to me? And if you literally, this is like put your feet up, have your coffee, draw a line down the page, and you go, habits, the things I do that are good for me and the things I do that aren't good for me. And don't stop at the things I do that aren't good for me. Oh, I sleep in on Sundays. Be honest with yourself. Realistically, I guarantee, 100% guarantee that if you write 30 things that you do that you think are good for you, you're guaranteed to find 30 things that you do that aren't good for you. So quite simply, it's a matter of analyzing yourself, a little bit of the scalpel of discrimination, as Yogananda calls it. Analyze yourself, question your habits, question your daily routines, and don't try to overwhelm yourself by becoming a monk overnight. Simply start to chip away at the things that aren't beneficial. Do you get emotional when somebody barks at you? Do you overreact instead of just taking a breath and going, well, gee, that person's having a tough day? You don't know the whole story. I think it's very, very important not to drag the old habits into the new year with you, but to decide, if I'm going to have any resolution, it's going to be that I'm just going to start to chip away at the habits that are not beneficial. And I'm just going to build on the habits that are good, and by habits, I don't just mean training. I also mean the habitual way of thinking, right behavior, the right way of doing things, the right way of speaking, and so on. And that's as simple as it gets, because the old saying, a saint who is sad is a sad, sad saint. You don't want to be a karate master, but be a pain in the butt. You don't want to be a karate master, but be, and when I say master, I mean, we kid ourselves because we have these ranks. And if you were to translate the word like Shihan or something,
master.
That's a master,
But I don't know because I'm not one. But
but the reality is, there's a lot of people out there who haven't. They have a 5th, a 6th, a 7th, an 8th dan, a 9th dan, and they don't have control of their fundamental habitual patterns of behavior. And I think that's really, really important to honestly introspect and say to myself, is what I'm doing good for everyone concerned? Is what I'm doing the best thing that I can do to help my own habits and to help my own attitude towards others and to help the people that I'm mixing with?
And it takes a lot of courage to do that. I think internally, if you're not on a great path, to change path and to actually do that and make those changes. I think they're great discussions to have, but I think there's a good saying that the most important conversations we have are the ones we have with ourselves, and that would definitely fall into that category.
Yep. The habit of daily introspection is the easiest thing in the world you can do, but it's the most challenging thing because you have to be very, very, very scalpel-like in your approach. So a little bit of daily introspection, and honestly, the easiest thing to do is, even if you can't sit up, when you lie down in bed before you go to sleep, just think, how did I behave today? Did what I do, is what I did beneficial? What did I do that I could have fixed? Did I overreact? Did I underreact? Because at the end of the day, the natural state of the human condition is centered, equilibrated, neutral love, an unbiased sense of calm, deep love. And it's the emotional charges that drag us away from that centered state. We either exaggerate something to make it out to be something way beyond what it really is, or we minimize things too. And that's the other thing that we need to realize is we procrastinate. We put so much off and we minimize things, and the easiest thing to remember about that is when you get an expensive bill. Quite often the first reaction is, I'll just put that aside for now. But the reality is, putting it aside is not going to help it.
No.
What you need to do is just somehow get onto it. And that's why you need to learn to use a daily task list. It's a simple thing. You just spend a few minutes a day, literally a few minutes a day, writing down even just 3 or 4, just if you don't want to get out of control, once again, underwhelm it. Allow yourself 3 or 4 important things that need to be done. Then you prioritize them. What's the most important one? And by that, I mean, which one of those 4 things, if I got it done today, would benefit me overall in the long term in my life most profoundly. And I can guarantee if 4 on the list is meet Mitch for coffee down at the cafe, that's not the one that's going to change your life. But that's the one for some reason we prioritize.
Yeah, because it's easy.
Yeah, got to pay that bill. I got to sort that out. I go, oh, Mitch, coffee, that sounds good. I'll put the other 3 aside.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you don't prioritize important tasks. So one of the biggest habits you can get is to learn to do a simple list, and don't overwhelm yourself. Literally stick to 3 or 4 things and then prioritize those things into things that absolutely need to be done today and things that won't really matter if I don't do them today. And cross my heart, going to coffee with Mitch downstairs, even though we want to think that it's going to change our life, we can do that tomorrow.
Absolutely, yeah. And you've got for those of us in the Budo Blueprint group, you've got a great section on this exact topic in terms of one of the lessons, which is fantastic.
Yeah, the above the line, below the line, I think it's a fantastic thing. I'll if I can splice it into this video at some stage, I will. But the fact of the matter is we have this simple line, okay, and that's the line of character. And character is simply the courage to keep a promise that you made when no one else is around, and when the energy and excitement and sense of responsibility and the sense of relationship with the person that you're making have all quietened down.
Yeah, they've all gone.
They're all gone.
You're just alone with yourself.
Yeah, and I always say it's just when you're alone at yourself, looking at yourself naked in the mirror. You've got nothing to hide then. So that's the line of character. And the reality is there are certain things that will keep you above that line and certain things that will keep you below that line. And there is a good thing: above was oar, below was bed. And I used to use that. I think it's very, very beautiful. But then I realized there's something missing. And I realized that the oar, where you take ownership, accountability, responsibility, that's one thing. But I added an S and made it soar. So if you really want to go places, you have to be single-mindedly focused on the task at hand and on your objectives in life. So I made it soar, SOAR, above the line: single-mindedness, ownership, accountability, responsibility. Below the line used to be bed. And I used to say, people below the line just lay around in bed all day and do nothing. But I changed it to bread, because now people actually, the social justice warriors and things like that, they actually blame people for the way they were born, or the way they were brought up. If you're a white Anglo-Saxon, you have no idea. You must be racist, that. We don't want to go into that too much, but the fact of the matter is, below the line is bread, which is blame. You always blame circumstances. Narcissists can't help themselves. They never do anything wrong. They can't be wrong. So therefore, everyone else is wrong, and the world is wrong, and the little old lady in the white car who cut them off is wrong. And they blame and blame and blame. The R stands for reasons. And people who are always good at procrastinating always have really good reasons. Yeah. Okay? The E, what's E?
Excuse.
Yeah, they're always making excuses. They have an excuse for everything. But one of my friends, Annie Gottlieb, hi Annie, shout out to you, the lifelong partner of the great Shihan Jacques Sandalescu. Annie used to say, got plenty of reasons, but no excuses. Okay, there are no excuses for poor behavior. Okay, and D is denial. They deny responsibility. They deny ownership, and we're all there. Maybe we go up and down above that line. When we're good, we're good. When we're bad, we're bad. When we're tired, depressed, we go through this happy, sad, glad, mad, as Benny the Jet likes to say. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, if you want to stay above the line, okay, be single-minded, take ownership, be accountable, be responsible for your behavior. But if you find yourself always blaming other things, always finding reasons and excuses and denying ownership, then, you're in the 97% group downstairs, but only 3% of the people above the line. So I used to like to say you're a leader or a loser,
A victor or a victim.
a victor or a victim, a champ or a chump,
Yeah.
to use
Or you
Muhammad
play
Ali's.
above or you play below the line.
Yeah. And I even have a friend, shout out to Sensei Raul Dueño in New York, in Brooklyn. Whenever we speak to each other, he always signs off ATL, above the line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think it's very cool. And I think once you understand that it's an 8-letter thing. Above the line, SOAR. Below the line, BRED. Don't blame where you're bred, but soar like the eagles. Be single-minded, take ownership, be accountable, take responsibility. And in a way, that's a very sophisticated way to describe the word Dharma. Dharma is the Do part of Karate Do. Karate Do. Taoism is Tao, the same word. And remember, we spoke a few sessions ago about how the Chinese word Tao, which became Do in Japanese, Karate Do, that actually comes from the Indian word Dharma. And Dharma means the way. And actually what it really represents is the righteous behavior, or the right way to behave for our ultimate long-term good. Now, the problem with that is this.
This is brilliant. We talked a little bit about this earlier, and you mentioned something on the lines of self-expression and so on, that people have it, but they have it with no wisdom.
Well, that's it. I mean, the world kind of says it's okay. You can be anything you want. Even if you're born a woman, you can be a bloke if you want. If you're born a bloke, you can be a woman if you want. You can be anything you want, because it's your right to self-express. It's your right to have an opinion. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The reality is, though, your decisions must be based on a degree of wisdom. You can't base decisions on ignorance and then say that it's Dharma. It's not. The main thing that people like Jordan Peterson and so on are getting in trouble with is that he will 100% support your right to self-expression, but he will also point out that if it's based on ignorance and foolishness, then it's not beneficial to anyone. Okay, so I think for New Year's resolutions and the idea that you want to make changes in the new year, and we spoke about this, do you make resolutions?
Not really.
No.
No. Like I asked you the same thing, and you said I work on them 365 days a year.
Yeah. So my resolutions are that I'd like to think that I'm constantly working on my attitude. And every day I do a little bit of self-reflection. I think, how did I go today? What did I do? And the book, the Bhagavad Gita, that book is one of the great books of all time. In fact, I'm going to go and grab it in a sec. But it opens up, and the discussion, that we have to recognize that it's a metaphor. And the discussion is a discussion between the wisdom part of my brain and the ignorance part of my brain. And the wise king says at the beginning of the book, how did they today? And what it is, it's a metaphor for that daily introspection, where every character in the Bhagavad Gita actually represents a psychological trait within ourselves. So by saying, how did all those psychological traits go today? What it represents is the daily habit of introspection and asking yourself as an habitual process, how did I do today? And if you're honest with yourself, usually you'll find things that you can work on.
And what's really interesting about that is you spoke earlier about habits, and you're just exactly saying that right now. You've got this habit of asking these questions and having just this habit in the evenings before you go to bed. And what a beautiful thing. And that compounds like compound interest. We may not see it in terms of a spreadsheet, but we see it in the way you live your life and so on.
Sometimes it's depressing. How did I do that? Oh, man. I screwed up there. I screwed up there. It's Yogananda says you don't want to let people get your goat. Well, your goat is your peace of mind. And every interaction you have with someone, you walk away with your goat intact or not. And, sometimes we let trivial things affect us in ways that they shouldn't. But if we have a sense of wisdom and responsibility and understand that everything that happens is an opportunity to learn, like has been said, there are not winners and losers, there are winners and learners, that sort of thing. I think it's very important. But this whole idea of self-expression and the right to express yourself is very dangerous in the long run. It's in fact useless if it's not based on Dharma. And Dharma is the righteous behavior that is ultimately for our greater good. I think that's very important.
I agree. I think it's wonderful that you shared that, and it's such an important thing to have these honest reflections and conversations with ourselves.
What do you think are some good habits in training? I mean, if you could narrow, let's say someone says to you, look, I want to make a few differences this year. What are some things that I could do that makes a difference without going, look, I don't know you. I don't know what I don't know any about that. So without getting too individually specific, do you think there are just 2 or 3 things that people could do?
Yes, 100%. The first one is to train consistently, without question. So train at an intensity and at a volume that you can do consistently, without doubt. That would be the number one thing. And what that means is you can train consistently without pulling up crazy sore, without injuring yourself, without doing a session and then not being able to do a session until 4 days later, that kind of thing. So that'd be the number one thing, to train consistently. And that also encompasses being injury free.
Yes.
Enormously. The second thing would be,
you've got about 4 or 5 right in there. It's one thing to train consistently, but you could focus on training in a way that doesn't get you injured for the entire year.
Yeah, that's one of my things.
Yeah.
Try to work on all the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the second thing would be, and we bang on about it all the time, but look after your connective tissue health in terms of stretching and tissue work. Because one certainty that the same wind blows on us all in terms of the aging process. This is the same for everyone. Sure, we have different rates of it and so on, but ultimately we're all getting a little shorter, we're all getting a little tighter, and we're all getting a little more dehydrated as we age. So you want to do things to reverse that. And that is stretching, that is good hydration, that is good nutrition, that is good sleep. These are these basic fundamentals. And you said something at training today, that most privates in training are just fixing basic fundamentals.
Yeah.
People get these and pay for these one-on-one sessions to fix fundamentals, instead of maybe just focusing on them all the time. And I feel that same way about training.
Yeah, they pay for privates because they want to learn the next best thing. But the fact is, someone will pay for a private. And I remember I had a guy turn up, he wanted to do 3 privates. And I realized now that in his dojo, they wanted to make him a black belt a little bit quicker, but he was completely ill prepared. And so for the private sessions, all you could do is just fix his basics, fix his fundamentals, fix his habits of stance, his habits of holding his hands. So a good private session will be quite almost boring to you if you have the wrong attitude, because you won't learn the next best thing. What you'll learn is how to fix the fundamental key things that are spoiling everything you do. That's where good training habits and good New Year's approaches to getting rid of old bad habits and introducing good new ones can be. Don't start with the Brazilian flip kick.
Yeah.
Start with
elbows in.
Yeah, and get your flexibility.
And there's one more I would just share is the community and the people you train with. You want to train with people you enjoy being around, who are superior to you, who have your highest and best good in interest. You add value to them, they add value to you. The environment's great, all that kind of thing. I can't stress that enough. The community that we're part of and your training partners to be the best training partner you can be, because you'll attract those training partners yourself. That'd be the third, just generic one. I can't overstate that enough.
There you go. There's some really good wisdom in that as well. And when you set goals, we talked about the acronym SMART goal setting. SMART. So when you set a goal, make it a smart one. Okay, I'm just going to put that down there. So let's go through that, Mitch.
So SMART, the S on the acronym stands for specific.
Yep.
And you guys might have heard this too. There's some variations of this, but specific is the first one. So my goal is to, just to use an analogy, my goal is to get fit. My goal is to lose weight. These are not specific goals. You want to target them a little bit more. What are you getting fit for? What does that look like? You're getting fit for striking, you're getting fit for grappling, you're getting fit for a tournament, for a grading, whatever it happens to be.
We actually used to use a similar thing. You'll remember as soon as I say it. You don't punch someone in the head. You punch them on the nose, in the middle of the head. You don't punch them on the nose. You punch them on the pimple at the tip of the nose. You don't punch them on the pimple. You punch them on the hair in the middle of the pimple, in the middle of the nose, in the middle of the head. You don't punch them on the hair. You punch them on the split end of the hair in the middle of the pimple, the middle of the nose, the middle of the face. That way, if you miss the split end, you get the pimple. You miss the pimple, you still get the nose. You miss the nose, you still get the face. So that's a really clear-cut example of why you have to be specific about your not only target selection, but also goal selection.
Absolutely. The second one is measurable. The M stands for measurable. And that's an important one as well, because there's a great saying in management and business: what gets measured gets, or what gets what is it? What gets measured gets results. Or there's a word saying similar to that.
It'll come to you in a sec.
Yeah. And so that's a really important thing. So what is it measured? Do you want to be fit to do 10 rounds, to be able to do 30 rounds? For your Shodan grading here in Australia is 40 rounds after 4 hours of Kihon, Idle Kihon and Kata and etc. conditioning. So it's got to be measurable. The third one is attainable.
Or achievable.
Yep. Or that type of thing. So just as an example, you're probably not going to win the World Kyokushin tournament this year and also do your 8 stand, and also, it's got to be attainable, something that's realistic for where you are at this point in time. The R is for results-based or realistic, which turns it to, depending on which one you want to go with. And the final one, time is time-based or task-based as well.
Time-specific or
task-based, depending on the direction you want to go with it. I like the time one because there's a good saying: a goal without a deadline is just a dream.
Yep. So that's smart. That's very common. It's not unique to us by any means, but it's actually a really good way to approach it. Be very specific. Make sure it's measurable. And it has to be measurable, because how else will you know whether you've achieved your goal? Okay. Make it attainable. Don't do it so that it's out. It's not, you can't achieve it. That's a bit silly. And also results based. It's very closely tied to the specificity and the measurability. Is results based. You want to be able to follow a process that gives you a clear-cut result. So in training, it could be that you want to master a particular technique. So I want to work on my back kick. I've been working on my back kick and I'm missing. It's actually going off at an angle. And even when I get it, I'm kind of getting caught, because when they block it, I'm ending up in the dead zone. Okay, so there's a really clear goal, is to achieve that back kick, get out of the range. They're all measurable through the reality of Kumite. So I think that's really good. Awesome. And that task-based, there's a good task for you straight away. Work on your back.
And a time-based,
time-based
if you want.
Is more.
And in your book, Xian, you talk about setting an annual plan. And the conditioning is throughout all of it, but the first 3 months could be a Kihon focus, and the second could be Idle Kihon, and the third could be Kata, and the fourth could be Kata. Yes. Yeah. So that's just as a framework, fantastic. But obviously you can specifies it to yourself.
So I think there you go. I think there's a lot of stuff that can be processed and thought about there. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because annual New Year's resolutions don't work for you. Well, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Ask why they don't work. Maybe you're doing something wrong. Maybe you can make an adjustment. Maybe you're expecting too much. You look at that smart base And I mean, is it attainable? If it's not attainable, it's just you're never going to get there, and you'll get depressed. You'll give it away. You'll throw it in.
Yeah, or
before.
you'll blame the New Year's resolutions like they don't work and so on. It's like, well, no, you didn't
Yeah.
do the work. You didn't.
Yeah, it's
do
not
right
the New
thing.
Year's resolution that the problem
No.
that presents the problem. It's your attitude to the New Year's resolution. Not that we'd ever say that. We would never judge people's attitude,
No.
but get your attitude together. Okay. So, and in a nutshell, it doesn't hurt to actually write this stuff down. Have it on a piece of paper, because at the end of the year, then you can compare where you were to where you are. And that's really good. So you should have some physical goals. You should have some mental goals. And by that, I mean mental habits. Do you exaggerate? Do you lie? Do you put stuff on Facebook about the training you're going to do and then not get round to doing it?
Oh, what about you when you see online people say 2022 was a warm-up, 2023 is a go year? And I remember, 10 years ago seeing 2012 was a warm-up, 2013 is a go year. It's like, come on.
Yeah, really. It's like the number of times I've seen people over time who go, it's going to be a great year. I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And I'll see them halfway through the year, and they're fat and flappy and soft. How's that wonderful year going? Yeah, I got a couple of injuries, and it's just the excuses start below the line. They blame everything, got plenty of reasons, make excuses, they deny it. Don't talk about what you're going to do to anyone.
Just do it.
Just write it down, keep it to yourself. It's been between you and your maker, so to speak. And just get to work and do it, and let your actions speak louder than your words. And you have physical goals, you have your mental goals. That's the primary one, because pretty well all the problems in the world are based on bad mental habits. Okay, you have your spiritual goals, and by that I mean taking time out to sit quietly and breathe. Watch your breathing. Learn to center yourself. Learn to remain a little calmer. That's a mental goal, but the ability to do it comes through spiritual habits. Okay, and then you have, if you're a martial artist, your technical goals. You're going to improve this or improve that over time.
Sounds
there you
good.
go. Any comments? Yep. Put some comments there if you're interested.
I thought I saw some questions for you.
Would you have any idea where to get the internal herbs for conditioning? Internal herbs, not too sure. I would never online recommend anything internal that hasn't been approved by, the Drug Administration, all that sort of stuff. But Chinese herbalists are always a good place to start there, Nick. You go to a good quality Chinese herbalist and explain what you want. A good herbalist may even do a bit of an analysis on you there and then and tell you what you need, and they can mix up the right herbs for you. So that's the best answer I can give for that. Wisdom sadly lost in the rush to be a karate master. Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of the word master scares the heck out of me, because what does that even mean? You'd think at somewhere along the line, master would mean that you had mastered at least some fundamentals of attitude and behavior and mindset. And the reality is, half the people who call themselves masters in terms of 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, even 10th, 11th, 12th dans, it's just a horrid thought to think that they refer to themselves as master or grandmaster or something when they can't even control their own emotions.
It's interesting that in your book, the second edition of the Budo Karate Masayama, you said from 6th dan and above, the hardest work is the internal work to do. And I think you're sharing some of that today in these habits and so on. But I'm just going to ask you this, and I think I know the answer, but it's that internal work. It's the hardest work, but it'd be, I imagine, very easy not to do, right? Because no one can see. You can see it because you've done it in others, but they can just pretend. People can pretend they do it and not do it.
Well, of course, it's the street angel, house devil sort of thing. We keep our bad habits hidden from the people that we want to respect us. And we take our bad habits at home and take it out on our family. So our family knows what we're really like. But the reality is, do your best to overcome your bad habits and make sure that at the end of the day, you live by your attitude and behavior rather than by your words. I think that's the most important thing. There you have it.
That's
Good
a great
one,
topic.
Mitch.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's-
good topic, important topic. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's super, super important to make sure that you recognize that there is value in reassessing your attitude. A little bit of daily self-reflection goes a long way. Us. Thanks, everybody, for your presence. Us, Sensei Mike. Yep, great topic for the beginning of the year. Get your behavior right, and the rest of the year will fall into place. Thanks, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next week, Mitch.
Thank you.
We've already trained twice today. We're going to go and train a third time now. That's because we would never let our words take the place of our training. But we just thought we'd tell you that anyway. Anyway, enjoy yourself, guys. Have a great new year. And thanks very much for joining us. Us.